To you and thank you so much for joining us. I mean, let's just get started, shall we? What exactly informed the Senate's decision to form its own committee apart from that of the House of Reps?
Good afternoon, Jude. Thank you very much for having me today. Yes, as you know, the Senate, in fact, the National Assembly resumed from a long recess, to observe the Eid al-Fitr and, of course, the Easter celebration. So it's resuming today after up to a month, if not more than a month of recess. You recall that before the National Assembly went on that recess, they had approved the emergency rule by the President regarding the state of emergency in Rivers State. The President had written to the House of Representatives and also the Senate, sending a gazetted copy of Order 305. Of the Constitution, so as for them to okay it. Now, when that was done, some recommendations following the approval came, including setting up an ad hoc committee by both chambers. Now, it was supposed to be, of course, a joint ad hoc committee comprising members from both the House of Representatives and also the Senate, as the case may be. But for some reason, the Senate, since they, of course, gave credence to the Senate, the President giving him go-ahead, for the emergency rule, failed to set up its own committee, even though the House of Representatives had done it, ever since then. And of course, you remember the breaking story that followed the House of Representatives committee, ad hoc committee on the Rivers State Sole Administratorship, summoning the Rivers State Sole Administrator to the House of Representatives to appear before that committee. Now, it is that committee that was set up by the House of Representatives to oversee administration in Rivers State that has now also been set up in the Senate to ensure the same thing. So this way, that there is now balance. So the House of Representatives has a committee. The Senate also has a committee. Now, it's left to be seen whether this committee is going to be at one point or another joined together to form a joint committee to ensure proper oversight on the sole administratorship of Rivers State. So that's basically what Prophet is setting up of ad hoc committee on the issue of Rivers State. And as you know, other developments too, are coming from the National Assembly at this time, particularly the Senate, with regard specifically to insecurity. So during plenary today, some members of the National Assembly, Senator Ibrahim precisely, moved a motion calling for the need to organize a national security summit. Now, he's saying that this national security summit is important because of the wave of security challenges that has bedeviled the nation, both internally, and externally. So he feels that this summit is important so as for think tanks within the Nigerian space, stakeholders, security experts and security analysts, members of Nigeria's security architecture, the heads of the security agencies, and other like minds can come together to deliberate with an intention to find a proper solution, a lasting solution to continued security breaches that are faced here in Nigeria. So this is basically, an executive summary, if you may, of some of the issues that came up, following the resumption of the National Assembly, particularly the Senate today.
Well, we're going to get to that National Security Summit in a second, but I do have to talk about, this dual committees that we've now seen from both the National Assembly and, of course, the House of Reps. National Assembly, the House of Senate, the House of Reps, both overseeing a Rivers State sole administrator. Is there no concern about duality or oversight where who is going to be, who is answering to who? The two committees, what exactly is one committee doing and the other doing? Senate duality here or some sort of, I don't know, you help me.
So for the sake of balance, remember we operate we operate a bicameral legislature, upper chamber and also a lower chamber. So it is very important for the sake of equal representation for both chambers of the National Assembly to have representation, at this committee level. You would also recall that because the administrator is a sole administrator as he is, sole means that he administers solely as an individual in the state and may not necessarily need other individuals to form a cabinet of government. This becomes more imperative as to the reason why we need to see representation from the National Assembly, because in the end, it is the National Assembly who seem to be, at the end of the day, the representative of the people at this point, following, of course, the suspension of the governor who was duly elected by his people. Now, following that development, you see, it is very, very, very important for the Senate and also the House of Representatives to have representation there. Remember that, of course, senators represent territorial districts. House of Representatives members, represent constituencies. So in order for there to be a representation of the larger majority of individuals in this situation, that's why you see, of course, the Senate having its own standing committee, its own ad hoc committee, and of course the House of Representatives having its own ad hoc committee. Now, should there be a situation where it looks like there is a replication of responsibilities, then these two committees will come together to form a joint committee, and of course they can perform or carry out proper oversight as the case may be.
I have to ask at this point, let's go back to the National Security Conference that has been proposed on the floor. What was the reception like? Very quickly, because we're pressed for time.
Of course, so it came with mixed reaction. Of course, some lawmakers complained that it may not be necessary, particularly the senator representing Abia State. Now, he complained that Ibrahim is the name. He complained that it's been going on and on and on. He cannot count how many assemblies, be it the 9th, of course, this is the 10th assembly, the 9th, the 8th, the 7th, and the 6th. He cannot count how many assemblies have come up to set up a security summit to address these issues. But he says they continue to pay lip service to the matters at hand, except Nigerians and the Nigerian government want to be sincere to themselves, to tell each other the truth as to what particularly has been the cause of these security breaches across the country. He feels that the National Security Summit will be another talk shop. Of course, there are other senators who share the same sentiment. However, in spite of the recent development, in Benue State recently, talking about the attacks by suspected armed herders, the likes of Senator Titus stating exam from Benue State is saying the summit remains important because, for example, his senatorial district continues to be affected by these attacks, consistent attacks by armed, assailants. So he's saying it's also important for the National Security Summit to be held. So mixed reactions, mixed feelings with regard to the Security Summit. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Sagir. I must say thank you for just clearing things out and being as insightful as always. Sagir Ibrahim, our National Assembly correspondent, giving us a bit of insight following plenary that resumed.